Hey, welcome to the Smarter Grid. I'm your host, Dr. Nate, and in this series we explore all the engineering and digital aspects of the power grid. So that's everything from relay protection, control, and automation to cyber engineering and communications. So let's dive on in. In this first video, we actually talk about the word cyber and where did it come from. And to be honest, why, in my humble opinion, cyber equals OT, operational technology, more than cyber equals IT. So looking at how we kind of perceive this word today, we often think of, back office IT type stuff. So here we have a laptop. We also now, in our just modern culture, right after Thanksgiving, we have good old Cyber Monday, where people just go online and spend lots and lots of money. Then in 1989, as far as the evolution of this word cyber over time, right? 1989, we had the cyborg, right? Jean-Luc Picard getting assimilated by the queen, the Borg queen. And even, the idea, I'm just gonna draw it real quick, the actual Starship Enterprise, right? So that was one of the big enemies in, Star Trek was the Borg, and they even just used that word Borg, but prefaced with cyborg. And then actually in 1948 is really where this word has some kind of nexus of origin, right? So 1948, Dr. Norbert Wiener wrote a book called Cybernetics. And in this book, he looked at the theory behind cybernetics. He looked at the theory of control and communications in machine and tissue. And in this book of cybernetics that was written in 1948, he gives credit to the father of this new field, go all the way back to James Clerk Maxwell. And this is actually the same exact guy that wrote the Maxwell equations. And in particular, there's a paper that Maxwell wrote in 1868 called On Governors. And in this paper, Maxwell basically looked at the control theory, the feedback loop of the governor of a ship. So you have a flywheel, spins, opens up a lever, and that actually helped control a ship. And this word on governors, Maxwell, this is actually a literal translation of this Greek word, which when you look at it, you can actually see it, cybernetics. So this reference back to this word on governors, Dr. Norbert Wiener took that and kind of did this literal translation there. And here you can see cyber with cyber, right? So this paper, or this idea of linking it all the way back to cybernetics, to Greek, 1868 is really where this root of this word cyber came from. This is very important because a lot of the way we treat cyber now is strictly this back office IT, all the way down to even how do we approach these modern challenges that we're having in the power grid. And I really like the IEEE PSRC definitions. So IEEE Standards Development Organization, within it, they have this particular committee called Power System Relaying Committee. I'm actually a member of this. And there's a standard which defines this word security. And security is equal to the degree of certainty that what you expect will be the operation, the device will actually operate as such. So let's say we have this device, be it a IED or a relay, or a RTU. So an IED, intelligent electronic device, RTU, remote terminal unit. So any type of control system device, let's say, that's used in the power grid, it's kind of all encompassing this word IED. When we look at what is on here, yes, it's proprietary as far as the vendor proprietary software used to program, configure this guy, but there's a lot of really cool stuff that can exist in here. So in programming, the back office IT stuff, there's if statements, if you're a coder or a programmer, well, inside of this guide is a different programming language, but you can actually come in here and create logic. So you say, all right, relay, I want you to trip if an input is high plus another input. Let's say if there's a fault, 51 overcurrent on a phase, let's say, plus something else, right? And then also inside of this little IED, or in this case, let's say a relay, there's a web server. So you have communications, you have networking, you have IPs, you have subnets, you have all this other stuff. You may also have a file server, so like an FTP for transferring faults. If this guy sees a fault, It'll capture it, store what it saw, and then you can even extract that. There's communication, so you may have some vendor stuff, some DMP, some newer protocols like 61850 that are really cool, or you may have something that's some instantiation of Telnet, let's say some vendor proprietary protocol. There's also some enunciator that you may be able to access that may be built on top of the web interface, or it may be some proprietary stuff. And then there's also a database that typically exists inside of these devices to store kind of that historian information as far as what this relay saw during a fault. So all this to say that we can't think of cyber as just back office IT, right? So you have to think now, these are computers, these are microprocessor-based devices that are literally everywhere in the grid now, and we need them. They help keep the lights on, they help keep things resilient, and that's basically what we're going to explore in this entire series, is how the cyber technologies of the grid are helping to create a more reliable, resilient grid, and even how do we secure it. So with that, thank you for joining for our first video on cyber and the smarter grid. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, corrections, definitely love corrections, put them in the comments below, or feel free to reach out, as well as if you have any ideas you would like us to cover. Reach out at info@cyberical.com. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.